Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment audio program, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder. And our program today is called Reparenting. We're looking at those core values, those seminal beliefs that you have, and where you got them from, and are they appropriate for the way you live today? We're taking a look at the concept of using your higher self to be your parent now, and to reparent yourself, to recreate some of those values so they fit with who you really are.
Yeah, we're not talking about any kind of real personnel change here. You're not swapping out your parents for new people. That would be another fantasy we'll cover maybe in another program. No, we're talking about reaching a point in your adult life, and you may be right there right now. You'll know in a matter of minutes. When you decide to take another look at the major belief systems, the core of who you are, based on things you've taken for granted because they were instilled, imbued, if you will, at such an early age. Your religion, for example, your basic political outlook, your values, your manners, so many parts of who you are you got from your parents without really being instructed. They just modeled the behavior and it imprinted upon you, and you became your parents. And you may want to take another look at that. We're going to talk today about how to do that.
And in a lot of cases, it was just the opposite of that. You observed your parents' behavior. You didn't like what they did, and so you now do exactly the opposite. Nonetheless, what you're doing is still based on the behavior of your parents, and hasn't really been your choice up until now. So we're talking about taking over the power and making the choice to look at those values, those systems of beliefs you have from your higher self's point of view, the self that you find in paradise, the self that's not the ego, that feels no fear, that feels safe to be able to explore these things and take a look. Now, maybe the politics that you've chosen, which happen to be the same politics as your parents, would be the ones you would choose today. Wonderful, but is there a way that you can take a look at that and update that belief system you have to make it more appropriate to today? And take a look at your religious beliefs. How many of those are influenced by what your parents believed and the culture that they were influenced by and the culture that they believed in? Some of them may fit perfectly for you today. Some of them you've shucked off years and years ago. But once again, take a look at now, right now, what's a new way of looking at it? I can reinvent myself. I can recreate myself right now and take a look at my socioeconomic values. If my parents were middle class, am I middle class? Is that a coincidence? Or if they were upper class, am I upper class? If they were lower class, am I lower class in terms of our income values? Did we match our parents? Were they influential in recreating the way we are today? What we're taking a look at here is, from this place of feeling safe, from this place of paradise, take a look without any defensiveness, without any anxiety. Take a look at the things that my parents told me are those things that I really want to accept and really want to believe right now, today, as grown up as I currently am.
Children are by their very nature codependent. It's not a problem when children are codependent. Adults being codependent, that's pretty common. In fact, we all have that to some extent. But children really depend upon pleasing their parents, especially at the earlier ages. But I think what I'm looking at here in terms of really core values, I think that tends to be installed at a very early age just by watching mom and dad, more than consciously trying to please them. It's all of that. But to bring into the consciousness, into the light of your awareness right now, as you listen to Steve and I talk about this, is my goal. I really believe we all benefit from challenging ourselves again and again and again throughout life at the various stages or passages that we go through to sort of reconnoiter and ask yourselves, is my meaning of life the same, or is it changed? My sense of purpose, is that the same as the meaning, or is it different, and has that changed? How are my values changing? My priorities seem to be different. Why is that so? And if you've never done this kind of work, or even if you have, to look fundamentally at the way your need to please your parents was fundamental to you making certain basic assumptions that you might want to now re-examine. I think if we look at some of those areas here at the top of the show, Steve, like religion has to be one. Sometimes people will say, well, my mother was the religious one. Dad said he was a Christian or a Jew, but he never went to church or temple. And so, or one's a Jew and one's a Catholic, and I sort of fell in between, or I went more with the Christians because I like Christmas more than Hanukkah. I seem to do better, all these kinds of beliefs. Our religion is largely an accident of birth. What chance do we have, born in Peoria, to be a Buddhist or a Taoist or a Hindu, And so how would we ever know? Most interesting to me in this area is the people who seem to be the most certain that their religion is the one right way tend to be the people that know the least about other people's religions and belief systems. You'd think we'd want to expose ourselves comparatively to all these belief systems.
So with something as primary as religion, where we virtually all began where our parents were. I mean, virtually all Catholic parents had Catholic kids who at some point may have changed and become something else. That does happen occasionally. There was this Buddhist from Peoria, it does happen where people who are not exposed to it in early childhood as adults choose something else. But the odds are really small. I mean, the numbers are tiny compared to the vast majority of people who just tacitly accept the belief systems that were passed down to them by their parents. Now, here's the basic premise that I always believed in terms of what parenting is all about. There's really two things parents do. There's two things humans do to influence other people's behavior. It's reward and punishment, basically. It's approval and disapproval. It's whatever you want to call it. It's pain and it's love, fear and love. It's the two basic things we do, the black and the white, the dark and the light. So when our parents to influence us, when we do something good, they give us approval, and when we do something bad, they give us disapproval. When we do something bad, they're critical of us. They look angry and they frown and they say bad things and they punish us and deprive us of and so that becomes the dominant voice most people have in their head when they think of their parent. Because even though they got approved of, the disapproval is so much more intense, so much more painful for most people that one disapproval is worth like 50 approvals, And so what they remember in their mind is the disapproval. And so most people, that voice in their head of their parents is a critical parent. It's a negative, you better not, or you'll be sorry if, or you don't have you aren't good enough. It's that negative critical voice. And to me, the core of reparenting yourself is recreating the parental voice inside to be one of approval instead of one of disapproval.
It's real important that parents remember to, as you say, reward the child or congratulate, affirm the child's good behavior. Lots of times folks just think of parenting as the critical part. That's what it means to be a parent. Well, somebody's got to set the rules around here, so I'll be the authoritarian and I'll communicate when there's a problem. But we're just saying it's important as parents to communicate when there is no problem. And say you're doing a great job. I'm really proud of you. I'm so proud to be your dad, or I love you so much. I'm so happy that you're my little girl, whatever. These are really important things to say to kids, and you rarely meet a person who will say they came out of childhood feeling really loved and cared for, and even if their parents were like saints and really, a healthy, high-functioning kind of family, if there's especially 2 or 3 or 4 kids in a family, you don't get all the attention you'd really like. So I'm not sure anybody gets out of childhood feeling as loved as they really need to be.
I think that's clear. And as you said, even if your parents were saints, even if your parents were very giving and very loving, and they said, good job, over and over again, if they said one, you're stupid, that stands out in a kid's mind 100 times more than all the good jobs. So
it's it becomes a survival, fight or flight thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we remember, if our parents were constantly critical or even just occasionally critical, we remember the critical part. That's where we have to take responsibility, each and every one of us, because our ego is thinking that critical stuff denotes danger, and we better be alert to that. We better watch out for that danger stuff because that could hurt us really bad. So we're just really glom onto this critical stuff that parents and people say to us, authorities say to us, and that becomes our superego. That becomes our critical parent in our mind, and that becomes our conscience almost. It's like it's the regret and the remorse in the past, and it's all the fear and all the fear of disappointment and the future, all that stuff, that becomes who parents us. And what we're saying is when you find yourself in paradise, that self can become a different kind of parental voice that can be encouraging and approving and loving and giving lots of authority and lots of autonomy and lots of energy in support of you becoming who you can best become.
Yeah, remember, we'll help you do this. We'll show you exactly how to do this and give you an exercise you can practice near the end of this program. We always have these paradise guided imagery exercises. So let's talk about some more ways we're affected. If we're going to reparent ourselves, Steve, another thing we have to do, I think, is forgive our parents for failing in most cases to know the difference and communicate the difference between who we were as their children and what we did as behavior, exploring. So if we do something bad, often that automatically becomes you are bad, right? When, wait a minute, I'm not bad, I just did something bad that upsets you. Now, wouldn't it have been different if our parents, and I think still today this would be a small minority, had the presence of mind to say, oh no, I'm very upset with you because of your behavior and because I love you so very much, there are going to be some consequences. We're going to have to talk about this, but not right now, because I'm really upset at you. This is really disappointing. Now, give me a hug and go to your room, and later we'll talk about it because I love you so very much. That's not a mixed message. That sends me to my room thinking, boy, I'm really loved and I really messed up. My childhood, and I'll bet most of our listeners know what we're talking about, was filled with going to our room feeling like not only did I mess up and do something bad, I am bad. And I don't think our parents really wanted us to take that literally, but we do.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many parents didn't want us to take that literally, in fact, because their parents, they took it literally, We parent, for the most part, the way we were parented, because when you're stressed, you can't do anything but operate on autopilot. When you're stressed, all you can do is parent the way your parents parented you, because that's all there is in there. There's no room for creativity. There's no room for ingenuity or insight or intuitions. So generally speaking, unless we're parenting from a place of not being anxious, but most parents are parenting from a place of being very stressed and very anxious, so they did what their parents did. And so we pass it down and we pass it down and pass it down. It's not really, for the most part, a thought-out process. Most parenting is a knee-jerk process. I leave it alone until something bad happens, and when something bad happens, I just react to that bad thing that happens. It's like, that's the way most parenting happens. I think the way your parenting happened, to some extent, the way my parenting happened. I think I had more of a loving and supportive parenting situation in my life than most people did. I was raised by 4 loving parents: my mom, my dad, my grandma, and my uncle, all in the same household. So I really had a lot of attention and energy compared to most people. But for the most part, we still, listen to the critical stuff that we hear the most, and that's what we pick out of everything that we remember.
It occurs to me that even the idea of then becoming a parent is largely imbued in you by culture, by your parenting. I mean, how many folks later in life, they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s, they don't really regret having had children or living a particular lifestyle, but they may look back and wonder, well, why did I really do that? And a lot of people, if they're going to be honest with you, will say, well, I got married early and had kids and got the mortgage and got locked into the jobs, and then, well, I never really chose to do that. It was just sort of expected of me. That's what all my friends were doing. That's what all their parents did. I thought that's what you were supposed to do.
That's most people, isn't it? I mean, in our culture, isn't that most people that did pretty much that?
I think so.
I didn't, you didn't, but I think most people did what was expected of them in their lives, and got locked into that early marriage and that kids and that mortgage thing. That's pretty normal. Now, that's a circumstance that we create for ourselves, and we don't really have to, because our parents did it and we did it, we don't have to be locked into that life ourselves, we can recreate ourselves even right now, and I guess that's what we're talking about. There's two aspects to reparenting. One is forgiving your actual parents, living or dead, for the things that they did, and letting that go, because you can't change your parents. That's law number one in psychology. Just let that go, and then accept that inside of you now lives some of their energy, lives some of their influence, and that's what you can change. That's what you can't change them, but you can change the them that got the residue of them that is inside of you. And what you picked up, even if they were very encouraging, you picked up a lot of negativity. You picked up a lot of criticalness, because that's what you were tuned into. That's what you were paying attention to. So all the critical things they said to you are still in there, and you still remember. And that's what you can change. The reparenting exercise we're talking about really is from a higher self perspective, to go in and take that critical parent voice and thank it for its wonderful service over all these years, and now release it, let it graduate, let it move on, and now take over the job of being the parent, the wise one in your life, with your own higher self, with your own values, and thought out politics, and thought out religion, and thought out socioeconomics, and just everything. I mean, just take a look at, how do you handle gifts in your life? Are you very generous, or are you very penurious? Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get everything from? That's what we're saying. Take a look at that. And as we go into alpha, as we go into paradise, recreate that. It's recreation. It's recreation to recreate yourself.
We're not talking only about the appearance of things, lifestyle in the sense of how it looks to other people, but on a really deep inner level, how it feels to you to be living the life that you're living. You ever put on a pair of pants or a shirt that just didn't fit, and you wore it, but it wasn't really comfortable all day? It rode up on you, or it was too big, and well, imagine if your whole life just didn't fit. And somewhere somebody's going, oh yeah, if you only knew, Michael. Well, you get to shop for a new size. You can, I've got several different sizes of slacks in my closet. You can do the same thing. Find one that fits, an identity that fits, a lifestyle that fits, values, ethics, priorities that are yours. And of course, this begs the question, well, how would I know? If, as we've been saying, this starts in infancy, it's cultural as well as parental. It's not only installed and instilled, but imbued in every cell of our body. How do we then, as adults, reparent ourselves? And Steve, I think it begins with the idea that beyond logic, there is an intelligence that is intuitive, a sensitivity to a feeling in our body, a deeper way of knowing. How shall we describe the way to get a sense of what fits for me in terms of identity and lifestyle and such? How would you say?
I think it has to fit both for the brain mind and for the heart mind. I think that's where we're going with this. The idea is, first of all, it has to make sense. From your intelligence, your wisdom, your experience, does this belief that you're holding, is it logical? Is it rational? Does it make any sense to you? And if it does make sense, now let's take a deeper look at it. How does it feel? How does it feel to have that belief? How does it make you feel? Does it bring up positive feelings of, I'm proud of myself for having that belief? Or does it feel like I'm a little ashamed of myself for having that belief? That's the intelligence that you're talking about. The intelligence, the wisdom of feelings, because your thoughts are often wrong, but your feelings are right. Your feelings tell you about you. You may think like a lot of other people. You think like your parents thought. The same words that they thought in their head may be going through yours, but you don't feel the way anybody else ever felt. You feel a different combination of things than anybody ever felt, and that's where we have to go to decide whether something really fits for us. First of all, does it make sense? I mean, if we don't look at it from a logical, rational point of view first, that's illogical. I mean, logic has its place. Does it make sense? Does it fit intellectually for me? But beyond that, it may fit intellectually. There may be nothing about it that goes against the grain. How does it feel when I wear it? For example, I take a look at my belief system about a man should stay in his marriage because my father split from my mother. So I think the way I was influenced at seeing my father desert my mother made that issue much stronger for me. And it took me a really, really long time to get married. I was 47 before I got married, and it made me so convinced that there's not a one in a gazillion chance that I'd ever, leave my wife. So that's influenced by my parents. I looked at that as an adult, and I think that the way my dad did it was so wrong that I'm going to use that as a moral compass to make an adult decision that if you do commit to a person, if you do make that commitment, then you keep that commitment. That became a guiding stone in my life. And so my whole life as an adult has changed from a me, 47 years of being a me person, like I did what I wanted to do, took care of myself and did whatever I want, to very much of an us person. And now I make no decisions virtually without considering her and the ramifications on her. We're an us. We're a two thing. It's not a me anymore. When I saw what my dad did to my mom, I thought I'd never do that to a woman. So each of us has our own individual experiences. There's cultural experiences we all share. There's family experiences that we've had that we share with our siblings, and then there's our own individual experiences. And we can re-explore all of those, any of those, as we look inside. But the most important thing to keep in mind, I think, is that for each of us, what we usually remember the most is the bad stuff, not the good stuff. And so when we reparent ourselves, that's the perspective we want to come from. We want to start looking from the point of view of the good stuff.
You're reminding me of James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, but of course there is a cause, and it's to express our anger and our reaction at the oppression of having been parented and not having our individuality honored. That's part of the problem. You're a little kid, you're not that much of an individual. You're an impression of your parents, and then as that individuality and that uniqueness begins to express, it's often squashed by the parent for reasons that are described as parenting. Well, that's my job. Somebody's got to keep this kid in line, right? And so much of school is draw inside the line and stand in line.
Find the one right answer.
Toe the line, yeah, and create this box inside which you're going to live. I mean, it's trite to say out-of-the-box thinking anymore, but most people still don't know what that means. It's a cute little phrase, but how do we think outside the box? School's not teaching out-of-the-box thinking. But we're talking about a process here of making it personal in feeling as well as thinking. Steve talks about the heart-mind and the brain-mind. So be smart, be reasonable, be logical, but also open your heart and feel, and you feel your emotions in your body, the same place you feel physical pain and pleasure. But let me call your attention to what happens in the process of not knowing how you feel. The mind will tend to take you in the direction of what other people think, or what you think other people think. And so when we're confused and not sure about a value, an ethic, a priority, what we'll often do is give up too soon. This is my argument anyway. You give up too soon and go with the crowd, succumb to peer pressure, do what's expected of you, and then later you feel as if you've betrayed yourself. So I think we can save ourselves a lot of grief if we account for that up front, that tendency to, go with the flow.
Yeah, it's a lot easier sometimes to not make waves, and it's just really a matter of picking your battles in those areas where it's not that important, to follow along. But in those areas where it really matters the most to you, and it influences your levels of happiness, and it influences the way you are with other people and the way you feel about yourself, those are the areas that we really want to take a very close look at in terms of seeing ourselves from a more positive point of view, seeing ourselves from that encouraging authority figure instead of that discouraging authority figure. And again, we take responsibility. We were the ones that picked up on all the negativity and made that so much more important than the positive stuff we heard, but still it's in there. So what we're talking about here in reparenting is taking the responsibility now to say, okay, I'm grown up enough. Maybe you're not, but if you're at that stage in your life, I'm grown up enough to take the responsibility of being my parent out of the hands of these people, whether they're alive or dead, and taking it into my own hands, and I'm going to be the one that decides what's right and what's wrong for me, what's good and what's bad for me, what am I going to do with my life? I'm going to decide that, and I'm not going to be influenced to the extent that most children are influenced by my parents. I'll take what they said, but the authority to make the decision now reverts to me. So in the alpha state, we can come from that higher self place and take a look at each of these issues, starting with the basics I guess we started with religion and with politics and with if my parents were in this socioeconomic class, upper class, middle class, lower class, am I in that same class? Do I need to be where they were? In terms of how we feel about marriage and how we feel about parenting children and how we feel about the most important things, are we just going to accept that what our parents believed is the right thing for us to believe, or is it time to take that job into our own hands and say they were right about some things, they were absolutely wrong about some other things, and even the things they were right about, there are better right answers today than were available to my parents 20, 30, 50 years ago.
I mentioned a few minutes ago that as children, we're all naturally codependent. We want to please our parents. We believe we need to please our parents to survive. It's a very core issue. Now, the idea is as we get older, we become more emotionally independent, but we're still going to have to face these points or phases or stages where we disappoint our parents. Maybe you're a teenager when this happens. Maybe you're a young adult. You might be middle-aged or older when it's time to disappoint your parents about this or that or another thing. And it could be religion. It could be, I want to be an artist or join the circus rather than go to work for General Motors. Coming out of the closet as a gay person. I think the society is moving through this. And some say not fast enough, but in the long term, this will be a very brief period of human liberation, starting with civil rights and then women's rights. We still don't have an Equal Rights Amendment in this country. That'll have to be revisited. Gay rights, consumer rights. This is part of a liberation movement, a bigger picture that I think transcends politics. It's about give me more freedom, give me more power, give me more responsibility and authority over my life, not authority over other people's lives. But again, Steve, that means we're going to have to, on a series of occasions, disappoint mom and dad and others around us in order to be who we truly are.
It's the adult children of critical parents liberation movement. We're taking our lives back from those critical parents. And it's really kind of funny because we can. We literally can take back all the authority now. They did their job. They gave us the information that we needed, colored by their point of view, and now we have that information. We can take the color out of it and put our own color into it. We can color the information the way that it feels best for us to color it. So we want to take you on a guided imagery, audio journey, as we always do, and this is I think a really special one, because here's an opportunity for the self that you find in paradise each time to take on a really special kind of job. It's time to have a happy childhood. Never too late to have a happy childhood. It's time to thank the critical parent for the job that it did in creating you being who you are, and now taking over that job as an encouraging parent, as a loving, caring, supportive parent, to be that voice that you hear coming from deep inside of you when you're taking a look at challenges and opportunities. So it's time to make that change, and you can make that change. You couldn't make that change in your normal awake state. There's too many things going on, too many things dividing your attention. But when you close your eyes and take a deep breath, and as we always do, find yourself, your higher self in paradise, from that place, from that alpha brainwave state, from that focused passion place, you can do amazing things. And to me, always one of the most amazing things you can do is change yourself. So let's do it. Let's take a deep breath and close your eyes and release the breath and realize that that's all it takes to find yourself in paradise.
Paradise, of course, is more than a concept. It's really a feeling, isn't it? A feeling that requires no effort, but rather is a matter of allowing or permitting yourself to be this safe and this relaxed. Feel the letting go in your body. From the top of your head to the soles of your feet, create and sense a feeling of muscles unwinding and relaxing. Drop your guard, lower your defense, feel that safe. And your emotional feelings will become more calm. The mind will seem much more steady and its demands less urgent. As you still the body, calm the heart, and quiet the mind in paradise.
And as you do, it becomes very clear that this place inside is free of fear. It's feeling confident, feeling safe, and knowing what's right to do. Now, from this place in paradise, knowing for you what's true, here's what you do. Take a look at that voice inside that is the critical parent voice, the one that is discouraging, the one that, given a choice, will tell you that you can't or you shouldn't or you're not good enough or don't try. The voice inside that you can't deny is critical, it's negative. And be very, very clear that that's a voice that's motivated from ego, it's from fear. And now it's time to thank that voice for all that it has done. Because, realize without that voice, the process of growth would never have begun. It was that voice that you needed. It was important in its time, but now it's had its usefulness. Now it's spent its time, and it's time to thank it for the job well done, or done as well as it could, and now it's time to let it go and replace it with the good. Replace it with the positive, replace it with what's clear is coming from confidence and safety, not fear. The part that's encouraging, the part that says you can, the part that helps you, pushes you, supports you on your way. Now, here's the simple plan. Release the negative voice, and do that just by making the choice. Release the negative voice. I choose to release it now. Just say, I'm releasing the negative voice, and know that that's the choice. And then replace it with the one that somehow knows the right thing to say, to help you on your way, to guide you in times of stress. The one that knows how to do what is right for you to help you to become your best. Know that that's the voice you want to hear, the one that's free of all the fear, the one that feels like love and knows what's right for you to do. Choose that voice. Accept that voice, and let that voice be the guide you use.
Beyond rebellion and realizing that you just can't be what others have needed you to be or expected you to be, in some cases demanded you be, even if you kick free of that, you're left with, who am I? Even one who found Aladdin's lamp would face the dilemma of needing to know what they want before the genie could grant the wish. So do you know what you want instead? The first step of reparenting is to reject this ill-fitting suit this lifestyle, these belief systems that never really were yours. But now you have to find the fit. Part of it is what you think. It's in your reasoning, because you're an intelligent person and you can think for yourself. But a lot of it is in the body. It's deep feeling, sometimes difficult to describe. It requires sensitivity and a certain dedication or commitment to understanding yourself better. And so do that now. Feel in your body, somewhere in the middle of your torso, the feelings that you imagine you would feel if you did know who you are and what you're for, the kind of person you aspire to be. And you don't even have to name these feelings, for many are blended combinations of feelings that would be difficult to describe, but feel them anyway as you sense yourself moving toward a greater understanding of who you really are, of what it means to be true to yourself. You can think clearly about it, but be sure you honor the feeling.
So when you hear the voice of encouragement, encourage that voice to continue to express what's best. And when you hear the critical voice, which you've released, if it comes up again, if it doesn't yet cease, then it's time to explore letting the rest of it go. And the way is simple, you see. It's just when you hear that critical voice, you take a deep breath and you release. And when you release the breath, you release the power of that negative thought to affect you at all. You take away its power. You take away all its power. And you leave it to be released. So when the positive voice emerges in dribs and drabs or in surges, then you say, yes, this is the voice I want to hear. It's clear. But if that negative voice comes through, it's not over yet for you, then each time you hear it, release it. Each time it comes up, let it go. Each time you experience it, make it cease by letting the breath, letting the breath just go. And the power of the thought goes with it. Be clear. With confidence of a deep breath, there's no room for the fear. So when the positive voice emerges, say yes. When the negative voice emerges, release. As the positive voice grows, the negative voice will shrink until finally the negative voice will cease. And you have reparented your mind. And as you do, you will find this new parent is going to do a wonderful job.
And that which remains and feels true and stronger than before is your integrity, your wholeness, your unity. It's a quality of strength that you carry effortlessly, with ease and grace and elegance, a quality of strength that you can gently bring with you back into the waking state as you reorient yourself to the room around you that you'll see in a moment. As you inhale slowly, hold as you peak, and gently bring this integrity, this wholeness with you. And now, exhale and eyes open, wide awake and alert, back in the room, feeling fine and in your integrity. This is perhaps the new you, or part of a process, certainly, of finding the truth of who we are. It's pretty cool. I think this is part of the secret destiny of America, is to have the freedom in a society to be able to do this personal work.
Indeed. I was just thinking might be an interesting thing to do would be to take, make a list of like the major things, like my religion, my politics, my socioeconomic beliefs, how I feel about people of other religions, how I feel about people of other political views, and notice whether they are the same as your parents, the opposite of your parents. Are they your choice or not? And would they be the choice you made now? Make a list of those things that are important. I was thinking about things like, I guess because the holiday season, about giving gifts. Where did I get the idea of I'm supposed to give these people gifts and not these people gifts, and I'm supposed to give big gifts to these people and little gifts to those people? Just the whole idea of that. Where did that come from? I think it's a really interesting time to explore a lot of those beliefs that we have about the way we do things that we take for granted. And where did we get those thoughts from? And it's never too late to change.
There's so many, if we start to name them. A lot of them fall into what looks like religion and politics, because those who lead the institutions of religion and government like to control as much of the game as they can. But we can break free of those institutions and, well, as Timothy Leary used to say, question authority and think for yourself. Believe it or not, that was controversial in the 1960s, to question authority and think for yourself. Now it's imperative. If you're waiting for the government to solve your problems, you're going to be waiting a long time. Any government, any kind of government, that's not the issue. The big changes that are happening in the world today are being led by individuals who organize in small but powerful groups. Wasn't it Margaret Mead that said, that's the primary force? Never doubt the power of a small group of dedicated women and men, because not only can they change things, it's the only thing that ever really has.
Yeah, it's not the universal acceptance of something that changes something. A small group of people create the change, and then eventually it catches on. But it's always a small group that starts it. And never doubt that the problems in our world are solvable, because even if governments can't do it, we know that philanthropy can, and more individuals are gathering together in groups and becoming philanthropic and helping those that are in need. So, the solutions are out there. We know a lot of what we need to do. Much of it comes from being positive about life instead of negative. Much of it comes from recreating ourselves and seeing things in a positive way, in a non-critical way. And again, to me, that means taking that power out of that critical parent voice and putting it now into the encouraging parent voice inside your mind.
Wasn't it Einstein who said that you can't solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created the problem?
The same level of thinking.
Thinking. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about. Finding yourself in paradise is a way of talking about developing the skill set, the tools, if you will, to expand your awareness and find solutions in places that you would never think to look if you were using the old mentality. We've got to learn to think and feel in new ways, and this whole idea of paradise thinking, it's meditation, contemplation. Brain researchers call it alpha. It's a real empirical place in terms of brain waves, about 8 to 12 cycles per second, right? 10 cycles, plus or minus a few. And practice going to that place. You don't really even need a teacher. If you have this series of programs and can rehearse every week, and you can, of course, play these programs more than once and share them with your friends, and here's all the exercise you need. You know about going to the gym to exercise and develop your physical body. Well, this is similar for the mind, for the heart, and really for the spirit as well. That is to say, consciousness or your awareness of the bigger picture. That's the breakthrough in paradise.
Yeah, thinking the way other people think is a pretty normal thing to do. Most of us do that. But feeling like ourselves is where we need to put our attention. I think feeling the uniqueness of who each of us is, and therefore just because other people think it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it's the right thing for me to do. It's not as if what I want is logical. I mean, if what everybody wanted was logical, then everybody would want exactly the same thing, because logic doesn't change. What you want comes from, well, what you want means what does your heart desire. It's not what your brain thinks it needs. It's what does your heart desire. It's what you emotionally would be satisfying for you. And so that's why we put so much emphasis on the feeling part of the equation. Not to leave the thinking part out. It's always important to ask first, does this make sense? Does this seem right? Is this logical? But beyond that, even if it's logical, doesn't mean it fits for me. Just because it's a logical thing doesn't mean it's, I mean, maybe I live in a society where we need more surgeons right now, but that doesn't mean I should be one. Because it doesn't, just because it's logical that there's a lot of money to be made and there's jobs available, that doesn't mean it's right for me to become a surgeon. So understand, just because it's logical doesn't mean it fits for you, doesn't mean it's right. It starts with the logic piece. Yes, if it's not logical, it doesn't make sense, then don't go there. But even if it makes sense, then check it out with yourself. And then feel it out. Does it feel like this is me? Does it feel like this is, as Michael was saying, the suit that fits? Is it like, real comfortable, or is it really like, tight or loose in some places? How's it fit? How's it feel? That's the real question to ask.
We want to thank you for your support and your interest and your practice over this past year. Not sure when you'll be listening to this particular program, but as we release it, it's Hanukkah, Christmas, solstice, New Year's time as 2009 becomes 2010.
And both of our birthdays. You had yours recently. Mine's coming up real soon.
That's right. Happy birthday, bro.
Thank you.
So we're very excited about having just started our third year with Finding Yourself in Paradise, the series of premium audio programs. The best thing that you could do if you love these programs is simply spread the news. Tell your friends about it. Just like you read a book you like, or you see a movie you think is really great, you go and tell people. That's all we'd ask you to do. We've got a gadget on the website at focusedpassion.com that makes it really easy. Send one to a friend, share a podcast with a friend, I think is what it says. And although you're paying 99 cents a week to support this whole program of personal and spiritual growth, this includes an ability to forward these programs as often as you want to as many people as you want. So do that. You get to be sort of like Johnny Appleseed and spread the good news.
Johnny Alphaseed.
So if you haven't looked at that built-in player in a while, maybe you've been sending these programs to your podcatcher or your RSS reader, go to focusedpassion.com. Remember the ED, focusedpassion.com. If you forgot your password, heck, just stick the email in the forgotten password form and you get another one right away. It's all totally secure, and then you'll see right below the built-in player that little device you can use to forward these programs on. So, season's greetings, happy holidays, happy New Year, and as always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui. 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 Maui, Maui, Maui,